in seat 16A, which was right actually over the engine that was flaming. And we were still on the ascent, and the engine blew out. And then the pilot turned around, made a line for the river. There was just a lot of silence, and obviously everyone was just waiting to hear what the pilot would say. And a few moments went by, and he just said, prepare for impact. And then we went into the water, and I've got to tell you, I've flown in a lot of planes. That was a phenomenal landing on the part of the pilots. I really want to thank them, and by the grace of God, I think everyone made it off the plane.
Well, it was probably a routine flight out of LaGuardia, which is a very busy airport to begin with. I mean, there's a lot of procedures and departure procedures to comply with that you really have to brief yourself on just to make sure that the airplane is doing what you want it to do. The airplane's an automated airplane, highly automated, a lot of computers, and so it does a lot of it for you. And you know, I don't know exactly if he was hand flying the airplane or if it was on autopilot. Chances are it was on autopilot because they're doing what they call an RNAV departure. And an RNAV means that there's a lot of restrictions to comply with. Let the airplane do it. And he was probably doing that. I will say probably. Sometimes I may speak out of turn here, not knowing exactly, but he was probably on an RNAV departure and VFR, looking in the airplane, looking outside. You know, you always clear the area for other airplanes in a busy airport. And birds, believe it or not. Yeah, you're always outside looking for anything else. He got roughly 3,000 feet, and he was probably monitoring inside the aircraft. He was getting his gear and flaps up at the proper air speeds. He was making sure that the airplane was doing what it's supposed to be doing, and he was talking to center, departure control. And when it happened, boom, boom, both engines are lost. What goes on in your mind? Well, the first thing that happens is you instantly look at your instruments to make sure you have engines. In his computer screens, he's going to see everything go blank. He's going to see a lot of warning flags. He's going to see a lot of warnings. The airplane's going to talk to you. And so all of a sudden, everything in the world is talking to you inside the airplane. And you look at your engines and they're spooling down. Or they're real high temperature. Or they're not putting out thrust. And who knows what your first words might be. Like, oh my gosh, politely said. But it's what has happened and what do we do now? And you only have a second or so to think about this because all of a sudden now you're falling. So he looked down, probably saw the engines no longer putting out thrust and got a little fearful spike in his adrenaline, saying, what do we do in a hurry to get one of these engines relit? Start it back up. That's your first inclination is, get one relit, and where do I land now? In the meantime, the captain's talking to ATC saying, I'm in trouble. Mayday, mayday. Lost my engines, I need to land. In his mind, is he going to do like a hairpin loop and come back and land on the airport he just took off from, same runway, opposite direction? Is he looking and scanning the horizon for another piece of concrete? Teeterboro, in this case. In the meantime, he's dropping like a rock with wings. And he's going, I'm not going to make either one. And he says, well, soft landing's better than landing in buildings over one of the busiest cities in the world. You know, the odds are so incalculable to lose both engines over the busiest city in the world and nowhere to go. That's when he chose the river. I say the same thing. How did he do that? It was really a feat of airmanship. There are various levels of pilots and people thinking in their processes and their hand skills as well. But in the airline world, it's more of a management situation. You're managing the cockpit resources to effect a safe landing somewhere. And I think a lot of the piloting is not the hands-on piloting of the World War II movies that we see. It is the mental managing of a complex airplane and complex cockpit. And so that management skill then is really not in your piloting skills, it's in your thinking skills. And how you delegate, how you manage, and then ultimately how you bring the airplane in for a landing safely. Ongoing training is it's a yearly event. It's 3 days. It's usually one of those things that you prepare for a couple months in advance, and you continue to prepare for, because what they're going to do is give you a day of ground school where you talk about many systems, and you talk about all types of circumstances, emergencies, anywhere from security, terrorism, fires, working with your crew, flight attendants in one day. The next 2 days then are 4 hours each day in a simulator where it's planned, you understand what's coming, you know various scenarios you're going to fly, but you're really never prepared. You're always on edge and ready to perform something that is going to come about, whether it be an engine failure on takeoff, a fire on takeoff, after takeoff, wind shear, loss of hydraulics, your gear doesn't come down, you're in weather, you're in mountains, and all these kinds of things, they can compound and create a situation of a hot seat, so to speak. How do you handle it? What do you do? And so to be refreshed yearly is a good thing, even though we may not look forward to it because it's a tough time. But it's a good thing to do that, to refresh us always on things that can happen, so that behind the scene that no one knows about, the flying public has no clue what the pilot does to prepare himself, is really truly behind the scenes for some future event that hopefully won't happen. But if it does happen, he can at least say, I've seen this before, I have an idea of what we need to do. I'll relay a little story to you. 2 days ago in Los Angeles, I was on an elevator coming down the elevator going to work. And another lady was talking about, she saw my US Air, was talking about the flight. She goes, aren't you so proud of the company? Well, yeah, I'm proud of the company to a certain extent, but I'm more proud of the crew. And she asked me the same question, don't you think that was a miracle? And I just said, if you look at the stars and try to count them and put more zeros behind it, the odds of that happening are just so incalculable. It is a miracle. And then the fact that they walked off the wings in the water and nobody died, an airliner crashing to earth, is beyond a miracle. It truly is. And then I even take it one step further. If you go back to before takeoff, when he was cleared for takeoff, a second difference before or after, a second difference before pushing his throttles up, before or after, his rotation rate, 1 degree difference in his flight path. All of those things contribute to, oh my gosh, this thing lined up incredibly perfect with the disaster. How can you even calculate that? And then when it did happen, to have that particular pilot in that seat with his background to maneuver the flight down into the river, not hit any boats or hit any bridges, because there's a lot of them, and land the airplane like he's really landing a glider on its tail, and then people walk off the airplane. I can't conceive of it. I can't even begin to comprehend it. But could I make that landing? You never know until that second comes, until that moment comes. You would hope so.